I'm Tracy Sable. Tonight on EWTN News Nightly, major ruling, reaction and analysis after an appeals court places restrictions on a well-known abortion drug, protecting children. Another U.S. state bans so-called gender-affirming care for minors. Arrests and concern. New developments after a mob of people attacks a Christian community in Pakistan. And bark for blessings. Why dogs around Bolivia are heading to church. These stories and more tonight.
From EWTN, the Global Catholic Network, this is EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you for being with us on the Feast of St. Hyacinth. Our top story tonight, the White House has released several statements saying it strongly disagrees with an abortion drug ruling. Yesterday, an appeals court decided mifepristone should only be handed out by doctors, not mail orders. That said, the ruling is on hold until the U.S. Supreme Court weighs in. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports. Owen.
Tracy, the White House keeps trying to expand what it calls abortion access. That's why the Biden administration is so worried about these potential pro-life protections.
Vice President Kamala Harris quickly responds to the debate over an abortion drug. She wants mifepristone to be easily distributed to women through the mail. She complains the court's latest ruling would impose medically unnecessary barriers to safe and effective FDA-approved medication, and she calls it a threat to a woman's freedom to make decisions about her own body. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre adds, due to the Supreme Court's stay, mifepristone remains broadly available for now, but if the Fifth Circuit's ruling stands, it will significantly roll back the ability for women in every state to get the health care they need. But pro-life groups were quick to praise the court ruling. Students for Life President Kristen Hawkins writes, the abortion extremists in the Biden administration through the FDA deliberately allow women to be exposed to injury, infertility, death, and abusers with their online distribution scheme. Meanwhile, President Joe Biden heads to Scranton, Pennsylvania to mourn the death of family friend Ellen Casey, who's being remembered at the Catholic Cathedral, telling reporters,
she's an incredible woman, and she raised an enormously successful and decent family.
The president finishing the day in Maryland, where he'll host a Trilateral summit tomorrow at Camp David with the leaders of Japan and South Korea.
Pick it up! Pick it up! Pick it up!
Protesters in South Korea don't like the summit's military deterrence plan. Past efforts to tighten security cooperation between Seoul and Tokyo have progressed with fits and starts. The Prime Minister of Japan spoke before departing for the United States. He believes it's important for the three countries to meet now.
The big worries are North Korea's nuclear threats and China's military activities in the Indo-Pacific. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says the summit will help make the Indo-Pacific, quote, free and open, prosperous, secure, resilient, and connected. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
And here now to give us more insight is Julie Blake, Senior Counsel for Alliance Defending Freedom, which filed the mifepristone case. Julie, good to be with you. First off, your reaction to the ruling and how significant is it?
Well, the FDA has a responsibility to protect the health, the safety, and welfare of all Americans, but it's failed that responsibility when it comes to chemical abortion drugs. These drugs are dangerous. They should never have been approved in the first place. And we are so pleased that the Court of Appeals yesterday ruled that safeguards have got to be put back in place on these chemical abortion drugs.
Julie, talk to us, about what is at the heart of this case when it comes to women's health and safety and the danger this abortion pill potentially poses.
Well, chemical abortion drugs are dangerous. As the court recognized yesterday, thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of women have been hurt from complications from chemical abortion drugs. These complications can involve life-threatening bleeding, infections, and the inability to have a future successful pregnancy. The victory that the court gave yesterday is to tell the FDA that it should impose basic safeguards on these drugs' use, such as doctor visits, having the limits on the gestational age so that they're not taken so far in pregnancy that they pose a serious risk of danger, and the danger gets worse every week. And so we're thrilled that the court recognized those safeguards. But what the FDA really should do is put politics aside, follow the science, and realize these drugs were too dangerous to be approved in the first place under any conditions.
Yeah, and I know it's just not physical health too. I mean, also a woman's mental and emotional well-being is at risk by taking these drugs. Talk to us about that.
You know, countless women across the country have been utterly unprepared for what happens when they take chemical abortion drugs. The Biden administration, the FDA, allows these drugs to be dispensed online, by mail, no doctor visits required, not even a doctor on the other end of a form on the internet. And so many women are just completely unprepared for the physical and the psychological cost of what happens when they take a chemical abortion drug. They go into labor at home, maybe in the bathroom at work, and then they experience an abortion alone, on their own, with no doctor or anyone else there to help and care for them. Women and girls deserve better than the trauma of these chemical abortion drugs.
Yeah, and Julie, another thing I want to bring up too, I mean, this drug, if delivered by mail, really means anybody can get it. So say if a crime is being committed, like sex trafficking or sexual abuse, I mean, that may never come to light.
And that is why yesterday's decision is so important. Basic safeguards on chemical abortion drugs should include having an office visit, having a doctor there. And that way a doctor can do an important screening to make sure that the woman isn't being coerced by a boyfriend, by a sex trafficker, into having an abortion against her will. So this really is an important safeguard to protect women from having an abortion that she doesn't even want to have.
Yeah, and the decision brings with it certain specifications around access and usage of mifepristone. Talk to us a little bit more about that.
Well, the decision says that the FDA failed to follow the science, the studies, to show that these drugs were safe without safeguards. And so the court said that under the FDA's own science, they never had the authority to approve these drugs beyond 7 weeks of pregnancy. They never had evidence to show it was safe without a doctor. They never had evidence to show it was safe without a medical exam. And in fact, that they never had evidence in the first place about the dangers of chemical abortion drugs. The FDA told doctors, told drug companies, don't bother reporting complications unless a woman dies. And then the FDA turned around and told the courts, well, hey, look, we've got no evidence these drugs are dangerous. We don't have any reports of harm. And the court simply said that that was not going to fly. If you have any form of reasoned decision making, you can't tell people not to submit evidence and then claim there's a lack of evidence of harm. And so that's one of the really encouraging parts of the decision, that it's time to finally study and see the harms that our clients, emergency room doctors, are seeing all the time in practice when women get these drugs online.
Julie, we have about 30 seconds left or so, but tell us what comes next.
Well, the Biden administration intends to take this case to the U.S. Supreme Court. And what we're going to do at Alliance Defending Freedom is continuing to stand for the health and safety of women and girls. And the FDA should do the same.
And Julie, we're going to leave it right there. Thank you so much. And we're going to continue to follow this. God bless.
Thank you.
Well, a ban on so-called gender-affirming care has gone into effect in North Carolina.
The state has an interest in protecting our children from long-term harm. That's what this bill is all about.
Republican lawmakers overrode Democrat Governor Roy Cooper's veto of the bill. Under the new legislation, no one under the age of 18 can receive hormone therapy, puberty-blocking drugs, or gender transition procedures. The law takes effect immediately. The Democrat-backed Inflation Reduction Act just celebrated its first anniversary. The climate change and health care bill was one of several measures designed to boost the economy. Republicans say the plan known as Bidenomics is not working and instead is hurting American families. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales joins us now with more. Eric.
Well, good evening, Trace. You know, Democrats continue to praise the passing of the Inflation Reduction Act, the centerpiece of President Biden's economic policies. Although Republicans say that prices are still too high for food, gas, and even rent, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer claims the $740 billion plan has helped slow inflation.
Republicans talk about it. They just do tax cuts for very well-to-do people and increase the deficit. But we actually did something. And now, in part because of it, inflation has slowed from 8.3% to 3.2%.
But West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin, the pivotal vote in the bill's passage, warned in a statement, quote, "I will push back on those who seek to undermine this significant legislation for their respective political agenda. And that begins with my unrelenting fight against the Biden administration's efforts to implement the Inflation Reduction Act as a radical climate agenda. Republicans aren't buying any of President Biden's economic policies."
Higher gas prices, higher food prices, lower savings rate, and higher interest rates. I mean, that's basically what the American people are seeing out of Bidenomics in action.
Bidenomics is not working, period.
Republicans on the Ways and Means Committee tweeted, quote, Democrats' so-called Inflation Reduction Act includes a $7,500 tax break for buying luxury EVs and another $4,000 for selling a used EV. Translation, the wealthy get a handout while working families go bankrupt buying gas and groceries. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer sees great days ahead.
When it comes to the IRA, when it comes to all the things we were able to do about growing the middle class with good-paying union jobs, with cutting costs, we've accomplished a lot, but the best is yet to come.
Some economists have a different take on this. They say inflation has come down due to falling gas prices and a series of interest rate hikes by the Federal Reserve and not by Bidenomics alone. One thing's for sure, the economy is going to play a pivotal role in the upcoming 2024 presidential election. At the Capitol, Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
Now we have a lot more still to come here on EWTN News Nightly, including targeting the faithful. A closer look at the destruction of Christian property in Pakistan and an update on the former personal secretary for Pope Benedict XVI. A man in Ohio has been arrested after allegedly trying to burn down a Catholic church. He is accused of causing $20,000 in damages to the Immaculate Conception Church in Willoughby, Ohio. The 30-year-old is facing felony charges, including breaking and entering, vandalism, and arson. Police in Pakistan have arrested at least 129 Muslims following attacks this week on Christian churches and homes. The attacks came following a report that a Christian man allegedly desecrated a copy of the Quran. Soldiers were called in to stop the riot in the Christian colony in eastern Pakistan. The U.S. State Department issued comment on the attacks, saying in part, quote, we support peaceful freedom of expression and the right to freedom of religion and belief for everybody. Joining us now is Ed Clancy, Outreach Director of Aid to the Church in Need. Ed, great to have you back on. So what more can you tell us about these attacks and what led up to them? I know there are reports that the desecration of the Quran may have been false accusations. What are you hearing?
Well, it's the general rule that an accusation is made without any evidence, and as soon as it happens, it doesn't matter that there's initiation of some sort of crowd dynamic. Generally, it's a call perhaps from a mosque or perhaps from a cleric, and the crowds become a mob, and the mob just goes and does violence. We've seen this with numerous cases, whether it's accusations of blasphemy against a nurse who was cleaning in a hospital or a little girl who was reading something in class. So it seems to be par for the cause for the Christians in Pakistan.
And what's the situation in Pakistan right now? I mean, can you also give us a sense of the overall relationship between Christians and Muslims in that country?
Well, unfortunately, it's not a two-way street where, you can say that both sides are equal. We're in regular communication with some of the educators, the nuns, and people who work in Catholic schools. And like in most very predominantly Muslim countries, the Catholic schools are almost always more Muslim children than Christian children or Catholics. And they serve them and help to educate them beyond what the government might do. And there's a great service there. But the reciprocation is not there. So in this case, there's an accusation of blasphemy. It doesn't have to have any corroboration. It doesn't have to have any proof. And it's just a call to action. And unfortunately, the actions are violence. Last night, there's an estimate of more than 1,000 people spent time, hidden in sugarcane fields because of fear of going home. And those who did return home found nothing. I mean, houses destroyed. There was one comment by a close contact of Aid to the Church in Need that every single light bulb in the house was broken, every single piece of glass, all the furniture was destroyed, every single cabinet or anything that had anything of value, food, was all destroyed and dumped out into the street and just ransacked. The same was true of churches. There's numerous videos that we've gotten, of the actual desecration of the holy places, and then rectories and churches and convents. Essentially now in Jarwanwala, it's not safe for Christians to be there, and they've evacuated.
Yeah, it's really, really concerning. As I mentioned, the State Department commented on the attacks and is concerned. What's more, as you know, last year the State Department redesignated Pakistan as a country of particular concern. So, you know, this attack may not come as a surprise, but certainly very concerning to people. Let's talk a little bit more about that.
Sure. I mean, the designation is essentially a wonderful starting point, unfortunately, an unfortunate starting point. But more needs to be done. There needs to be more diplomatic and even economic pressure. Where the United States doesn't have the power some of our allies do, especially in the UK and Europe, where they have much more direct relationships economically. And so there should be firewalls so that the Christians don't have to suffer this. You know, what is a Christian community about 2% to do in a country where if they get accused of anything, right or wrong, they're immediately punished? There's no really true court of justice. It's just a court of the mob. And so for the Christian community, they really need the help of the international community, the United States in particular. And it has to be more than words. It just can't be a diplomatic phrase or a press release or, you know, someone looking sad or stern on camera. It has to be more than that. We have to do something really to help these people and to speak up for them.
Yeah, and Ed, you know, what are the potential penalties for blasphemy in Pakistan? Give us an idea.
Well, the law has three different parts. One is, saying bad or defamatory things about Islam in general. The other is to desecrate the Quran, and the last one is to say, again, terrible things about the Prophet Muhammad. And you serve anywhere from a guaranteed year in prison to life in prison and then finally execution. Now, Pakistan has always said that they've never executed anyone, but they don't have to. All that is needed is the example like this where someone is accused. Now, I'm not saying that there have been people killed in this attack, but we don't know. We literally don't know what the situation is because the people flee for their lives. We don't know their situation. And it won't be days or even weeks until you understand what the damage is. The clerics, the priests who have gone back to some of these places had to go under military escort, literally, be escorted for the protection of their lives just to go back to their own churches. So it's a very difficult situation for Christians, and really more needs to be done to help them.
Yeah, Ed, we're almost out of time here, but quickly, I know that your organization is really involved there in Pakistan. Tell us what the Aid to the Church in Need is doing. I know you're keeping a close eye on the situation.
Yeah, well, we support them on all levels. Obviously, we're a pastoral agency, so we support the life of the church, but it goes down to the very fine level of helping the individuals who get accused of these, in this case, a blasphemy case. They oftentimes need support. Their family needs support. They have to go into hiding. All of those things have to be put into the mix, and we have to understand how to best help them. And the church there does it, and we have to do it quietly and in a way that helps all people the best way.
Ed, thanks so much for weighing in, for your insights and all the work you do. We appreciate it. God bless.
Thank you very much. Please pray for them.
We will. Up next on EWTN News Nightly, enthusiastic about education. A closer look at an initiative backed by Pope Francis. Plus, Bolivia unleashed, how the country is celebrating the feast day of the patron saint of dogs. The former personal secretary for Pope Benedict XVI made his first public appearance since leaving the Vatican earlier this summer.
Dazu gehört ganz wesentlich der Glaube auch an den Himmel, den Glauben an das ewige Leben.
Archbishop Georg Gainswein celebrated Mass in a small town in Bavaria. His appearance at Mass drew several hundred pilgrims eager to hear what he had to say. During his homily, the 67-year-old said that every person longs to be accepted by others. Well, students in the United States and around the world are either back at school or headed back soon, and the new year is another reminder of the Holy Father's initiative for the classroom. EWTN Vatican Bureau Chief Andreas Thonhauser recently spoke with a Holy See official about the Pope's Global Compact on Education.
We're here at the World Youth Day in Lisbon. With me is Professor Antonella Sciarrone, who is the Undersecretary for the Dicastery of Education and Culture. And she has also presented here the relaunch of the Global Compact of Education. Can you tell us a little bit more about this?
Our Dicastery decided to be present here at the World Youth Day and to relaunch the Global Compact on Education. The Global Compact on Education was a strong idea of the Holy Father, launched in 2019, and we want to be here with many initiatives because here we can meet a lot of young people, and young people must be protagonists of the educational relationship.
And could you tell us a little bit Pope Francis's perspective also on education and maybe what he brings to the table also with his thoughts and ideas in this regard?
The idea is to make education the driver for every change, because in the agenda of the Holy Father we can see new paradigms in economics, politics, growth, progress, ecology, but and I think that this is a great intuition, every change needs education, a transformation in terms of education, because education is the driver, the main driver for the future. And so the idea is to keep together each person that is committed in educational field, and to build alliances. The focus of the Global Compact on Education are 7 commitments, very simple commitments, and these commitments could be the path in the direction of a transformative educational process.
What is, for example, the most important commitment in your opinion?
One of the most important commitments is listen to the voices of children and young people. Another important commitment is focused on the role of families, because family is an important actor together with schools and universities to build a new educational process.
You're a professor yourself. What do you think is the most important contribution of the Catholic Church also to education in general?
Yes, I was professor at Università Cattolica in Milan, and I think that Catholic Church plays a very important role in educational field, always in the present and also in the past. And it's important to be able to have a voice at the international level also, because it's important to have education with some features, not education for education, but it's important to have education with the person at the center, education able to a new way of design economics, politics, and so on. And in this perspective, Catholic Church and also Catholic universities that belong to the Church are extremely important, and our dicastery trusts a lot on Catholic universities for this work for the future.
Thank you very much, and all the best also for your very important work.
Thank you.
And finally tonight, a very special blessing in Bolivia. Father Justino led the blessing of the dogs in Bolivia. It was part of yesterday's feast of St. Roch, the patron saint of dogs. The blessing is meant to bring canines health and protection for the coming year. Adorable. And we thank you for watching tonight. Remember, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, now known as X, and Instagram at EWTN News Nightly. I'm Tracy Sable. Good night and God bless.